Hello, welcome to Anything Relevant. I'm just out and about, having a walk, thinking things over, pondering things. And I've been listening to the news and reading and trying to catch up on my homework. And the world is just screaming right now. And I'm hearing about this emergency act that hasn't been enacted since ever. That a different version, the current Prime Minister, his father, enacted. But they weren't the same, they're not the same. One thing I just find interesting is that throughout history we've had numerous kingdoms and empires and governments, and they've had this ability to do something swiftly if these circumstances demand it. And it's got a mixed history. You should understand that. Times that it was enacted and your cynical voice in your head ended up being true, that the powers were not given back, that they were not used with transparency, that they were not used in the proper context in which they were written up. So that is not a reason to never use it. Just because some people used it poorly, well, then we should never use it. Well, there's other times where having that emergency power was the very thing that needed to be done. And it put the world or the country or what have you that we're talking about for the example in a safer outcome. Like, for example, I wish I knew the country, but it was like one of the Scandinavian countries, like Norway or whatever, during the conflicts in Europe between World War I and World War II, there was a person that was given auxiliary power, and there was no one to ask anything for. Like they gave it to the person. The person was authorized to do whatever they thought to get through the issue, to get through the problem, the existential threat. Now we're talking World War I, World War II, so. And they're in Europe, whether it's Norway, Sweden, or Finland. I can't remember which. I think it was Norway. And they were given supreme power. And the desire of the people that did this was to keep that country safe. You had Russia, Germany, Austria, and the Allied nations all duking it out. They just wanted to be around when the smoke cleared. That in the mix of it all, that superpower that could emerge from the conflict, be it one side or the other, that they don't get turned on. Their history was that Russia was constantly invading them before World War I, and also post World War I, before World War II. They were still prodding at the border, trying to get in there, Russia. Now, this country was knocked on this guy's door, gave him the reins, like supreme reins. There's no one to check in with. And they did this willingly. They gave up their freedom and their liberty just so they could survive something so scary. And it worked. They're still around. So how do we know when we have a benevolent dictator? That's why I make this video. Canada has just incited an act that has only been used when one militarized country with a couple of friends decide to take on the world, in the words of in the words of freedom. You know, they would try to wage a campaign, a campaign of their people first, causes such a threat that a bill like this, auxiliary power like this, is passed. But you got to have a country of that level of danger to incite this. Like Rome had this. Rome had the same thing, auxiliary power. Oh no, the barbarians are at the border. So we need to give Caesar everything. supreme dictatorship. And that's in fact where we get the word. Not the literal word, but the concept of the word. You know, I'm pretty sure it was in a different language. But we forget that we've been doing this for a long time. That we're just revamping old tactics out of fear. Fear is an exceedingly difficult thing to master. To get to be able to cool and calm your nerves when experiencing it. It's hard. And when you're scared, you do whatever you think you need to alleviate the danger, circumvent it, survive it, overcome it, subdue it, whatever. You'll do exceedingly exaggerated things that you didn't think you'd be capable of. So it didn't work for the Romans all the time, because you'd get a Caesar and he would get that power and he wouldn't give it back. The threat gone, the Germanians no longer fighting. And then you got the Senate being like, all right, Caesar, you're going to give that power up? It wasn't permanent. Yeah, but I'm going to make it permanent though. And you don't have the loyalty of the army. They're loyal to me. I paid them. I took care of them. They're loyal to me. So you got that. Didn't work out. But when you get someone like Marcus Aurelius, he's a Roman, he's a Caesar, you give him some power, you'd give it back. You gave that supreme power to a retired military commander or officer, high-ranking general in Norway. They gave him supreme power. He didn't want it. He retired from the military service. He didn't want to get into politics. He figured if I was going to come out of retirement, go back and do what I know what to do. Back in the military. It's not what they wanted. They trusted him. So they gave him supreme power, but he gave it back. So there's been good times to do this. So that's why I make this video. When do we recognize a benevolent dictator? Huh? When do we know? How do we know? This is how we know. The best leaders are leaders that never wanted to be leaders. The most trustworthy people are given something that they don't want, and they will give it back because they never wanted it. So should we do what Norway did? Knock on the door of someone we know that will give everything back once the time period has elapsed. If we knock on someone's door and say, hey, we want you to be Prime Minister of Canada, at least for 2 terms, or at least 1 term rather, and then 2 terms only. If we said that to them and knocked on their door and demanded that from them through, love and adoration and compliment, and they did it, and we knew that they didn't want it, and they told us numerous times while we're asking, I don't want this, it's not what I want to do. But we said, you have all the qualifications. We researched it. We looked through your history, your work history. We looked through all your professional relationships that you've had through all your dealings in your career. And you have international stretch. That goes a long way. So we want you to be leader. Now, and they keep saying, no, I don't want it. I'm just going to give it back after that 4 years because I don't want it. And after that 4 years, I'm just going to go back to fishing or whatever it is that they're doing on their retirement. If we, it won't work. I bring out this long-winded explanation. It's anecdotal. It's a rarity. So can we recognize and find benevolent dictators? No, we can only just notice after the fact. But people that want things. I want that. Do we trust them? Are they worthy of trust? When they're asking for power? No, we know that's not a good idea. You don't give people power that want power. We know that. So, I don't know how I feel about the current events. I am not a card-carrying political person. I do not vote one way only. If I voted Liberal, or if I voted NDP, if I voted Green, they don't own me. You got to earn my vote. You got to impress me. You got to make me feel like you're working for me, that you actually are a servant, a government servant. Instead, we have a new aristocracy that came out of the bourgeoisie. We work so hard as a people. And I'm not even saying as Canadians. That'd be arrogant of me. I'm saying humans. We've worked so hard as humans, being led by the privileged, being led by people that actually have the qualifications. We've been led by maniacs. We've been led by a plethora of characters throughout history. And these people have cost our ancestors, all the way up to our parents' generation and our own, in war. The one thing that we've never asked after a war, and depending on your empire, is, well, what do we get? We get to bleed and die for your cause. But what do we get? So, nothing. We get told to shut up and support the team. Don't you like the Canucks over the Maple Leafs? Or vice versa? We got to stop thinking tribal, or we're going to stay tribal. Every people started off as tribes. So it's a long ingrained thinking process within our society. And we, in the past, if you thought differently, well, there was harsh repercussions for it. To the point that there would be these surges that would go across the continents looking for a type of people and eliminating them. And this is not just one group throughout history. This is many different groups for many different reasons. You got witch hunts that killed so many people, killed animals. Then you had that during a plague, and they're killing the very animal that could have helped slow down the spread. But with all this, all we're doing is making decisions out of fear. And I think that's what's going on right now. Everyone's screaming at the top of their lungs. They're doing this out of fear. And I don't fault them. I told you, life is scary. But when you think with feelings and not with information, well, you're going to get things wrong. And that's fine. Our human history is chock full of mistakes. And that's fine. As long as we can recognize that and grow. But that means we got to do new things. And we got to retire old things. So I guess I'll ask that question one more time and a sign off. How do we know when we recognize a benevolent dictator? Well, thank you for dropping by. I hope I have more for you. It's been a while. I'm sorry. I've been stressed out. I've been overworked. I've been made paralyzed and petrified with what's been going on lately. I don't think you can in the moment, because your emotions will get the better of you to answer that question. I don't think you do notice. I think you only know when you're reading history. Anyway, stay brave, stay calm, stay lovely. I miss you all. I hope to have one up soon. All right, ciao for now.